She was just a poor maid trying to survive. Every day, she cleaned the floors, washed the dishes, and did everything her madam asked. But behind closed doors, she was secretly filming her madam's husband. No one knew what she was doing. No one suspected anything. But when the truth finally came out, the entire family was shattered. Who was this maid? Why was she filming? And what did she capture that destroyed everything? Sit back and find out as we dive into this shocking story. The phone slipped from Amaka's trembling hands and clattered onto the marble floor. What was that? Mr. John's voice boomed from inside the master bedroom. Amaka's heart stopped. Her entire body froze. The small recording phone lay face up on the hallway floor, its red recording light blinking like an accusation. Through the half-open bedroom door, she could see Mr. John sitting on the bed with that woman in the red dress. And now both of them were staring directly at the doorway where Amaka stood, paralyzed with fear. "Who's there?" the woman shrieked, pulling the bedsheet around herself. Time seemed to slow down. Amaka's mind screamed at her to run, to move, to do something, but her legs wouldn't obey. Mr. John's face transformed from confusion to recognition, then to pure rage. He jumped off the bed and stormed toward the door. "You!" he roared, yanking the door fully open. His eyes fell on the phone on the floor, its camera still recording. "You've been spying on me," Amaka finally found her voice, though it came out as barely a whisper. "Sir, I can explain." "Explain?" Mr. John's hand shot out and grabbed her wrist with crushing force. "You've been recording me? How long? How long have you been doing this?" Tears started streaming down Amaka's face, not from the pain in her wrist, but from the realization that everything was crumbling. Everything she had risked, everything she had planned. It was all falling apart in this single moment. The woman in red appeared behind Mr. John, now wrapped in his shirt. Her eyes were cold and calculating. "Chief, this maid has been spying on you. She's been recording us." Mr. John bent down and snatched the phone from the floor. His face went pale as he saw the screen. The recording time showed 43 minutes. His fingers fumbled as he stopped the recording and started scrolling through the phone's gallery. Video after video after video. His hand began to shake. "How many?" he whispered, his voice dangerous. "How many videos do you have?" Amaka couldn't speak. She could only watch as he counted, his face growing redder with each file he discovered. 27, he finally said, his voice trembling with barely controlled fury. 27 videos. He looked up at her, and for the first time in 2 years of working for him, Amaka saw genuine hatred in his eyes. Why? Why are you doing this? This was the moment Amaka had dreaded but also, strangely, prepared for. She took a shaky breath and decided to tell him the truth. Not the truth he expected, but the real truth. "Because I love you." The words hung in the air like a bomb that hadn't yet exploded. Mr. John's grip on her wrist loosened slightly. "What?" The woman in red laughed, a harsh, mocking sound. "This poor maid loves you." "Chief, this is ridiculous." But Amaka kept her eyes fixed on Mr. John's face. "I've loved you since the first month I started working here. I watched you every day, how kind you were, how gentle, how different from your wife who treated me like trash. I thought if I could gather evidence of your affair, if I could show your wife what kind of man you really are, maybe you would divorce her, maybe you would notice me." The silence that followed was deafening. Mr. John stared at her like she had grown a second head. Then he started laughing. It was a bitter, incredulous laugh that made Amaka's heart sink even further. "You thought I would divorce my wife for you?" He released her wrist and stepped back, still laughing. "You? A maid? Do you have any idea how insane that sounds?" The woman in red had stopped laughing. She was now looking at Amaka with something that might have been pity. "Girl, what were you thinking?" Amaka's tears fell harder now. "I wasn't thinking. I was feeling. Every day I watched you with her, and every night I heard you two fighting. I saw how miserable you were. I thought maybe what?" Mr. John's voice turned cold. "That I would leave my wife, my social standing, my reputation, for my housemaid. Are you completely delusional? Before Amaka could respond, another voice cut through the tension. Well, this is interesting. All three of them spun around. Mrs. Elizabeth stood at the top of the staircase, her designer handbag still on her shoulder. Her face was unreadable, not angry, not sad, just eerily calm. Elizabeth. Mr. John's face went from red to white. What are you doing here? I thought you were at the hotel. The party was boring, so I left early. Mrs. Elizabeth walked slowly down the hallway toward them, her heels clicking against the marble. Her eyes moved from her husband to the woman in his shirt, then finally settled on Amaka. But it seems I left too early. I missed quite a show. Elizabeth, let me explain, Mr. John started, but his wife raised her hand. Explain? Oh, I heard the explanation. The walls in this house aren't as thick as you think. She stopped in front of Amaka, studying her face. So my maid has been in love with my husband. And she's been recording his affairs, hoping to break up our marriage. Amaka couldn't meet her eyes. The shame was overwhelming. But what Mrs. Elizabeth said next shocked everyone. Give me the phone, Mr. John blinked. What? Give me the phone, Mrs. Elizabeth repeated, holding out her hand, the one with all the videos. Mr. John clutched the phone tighter. Elizabeth, we need to talk about this. Give me the phone. There was steel in her voice now. Reluctantly, Mr. John handed it over. Mrs. Elizabeth took it and spent several minutes scrolling through the videos, her face remaining neutral. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. The woman in red looked like she wanted to disappear. Finally, Mrs. Elizabeth looked up. Amaka, go to your room. Pack your things. You're leaving tonight. Amaka's heart shattered into a million pieces. Madam, please. I said go. Sobbing, Amaka turned and ran toward her small room at the back of the house. Behind her, she could hear Mr. John trying to talk to his wife, his voice pleading. But Mrs. Elizabeth cut him off. Both of you, get dressed and get out of my sight. We'll talk tomorrow. 2 months earlier, Amaka had arrived at the Adeyemi mansion on a rainy afternoon in June, carrying everything she owned in a small bag. She was 28 years old, but life had aged her beyond her years. Her parents had died when she was young, leaving her to care for 3 younger siblings in their village in Enugu. The only way to survive was to leave them with her aunt and find work in Lagos. Mrs. Elizabeth had interviewed her in the living room, looking her up and down like she was inspecting a piece of furniture. Can you cook? Mrs. Elizabeth had asked, not bothering with pleasantries. Yes, madam. Can you clean? Yes, madam. Can you follow instructions without asking stupid questions? Yes, madam. Mrs. Elizabeth had sighed. Fine. You'll work 6 days a week, Sundays off, 25,000 naira per month. Room and food provided. Don't steal, don't gossip, and don't bother me unless I call for you. Understood? Yes, madam. Thank you, madam. That first month was hell. Mrs. Elizabeth found fault with everything Amaka did. The floors weren't clean enough. The food was too salty. The clothes weren't ironed properly. Once, she had thrown a plate on the floor deliberately and made Amaka clean it up, while her friends watched and laughed. But Mr. John was different. On Amaka's 3rd day, she had been struggling to carry a heavy bucket of water when he appeared. Let me help you with that, he had said, taking the bucket from her hands. Amaka had been shocked. Rich men didn't help maids, but Mr. John had smiled at her, a genuine, kind smile, and carried the bucket to where she needed it. What's your name? He had asked. Amaka, sir. Nice to meet you, Amaka. I hope my wife isn't being too hard on you. That simple act of kindness had planted a seed in Amaka's heart. As weeks turned into months, that seed grew into something dangerous. She started noticing everything about him. The way he drank his coffee, the way he smiled when he read the newspaper, the tired sadness in his eyes when his wife berated him. She began to create little fantasies in her mind. What if she wasn't just a maid? What if she was educated and refined? Would he notice her then? Would he choose her over his cold, cruel wife? It was madness, she knew. But the heart doesn't listen to logic. Then, 2 months ago, everything changed. Amaka had overheard Mr. John on the phone talking sweetly to someone who wasn't his wife. She had followed him one evening and discovered the affair. Instead of feeling hurt or betrayed on Mrs. Elizabeth's behalf, Amaka had felt, hope. If he was cheating, that meant the marriage was broken. If the marriage was broken, maybe it could end. And if it ended, maybe, just maybe, there was a chance for her. That's when she had started recording. Not to protect Mrs. Elizabeth, not to expose the truth for righteousness, but to gather ammunition to destroy the marriage. She had convinced herself that she was doing it for love, that somehow this would lead to her happy ending. How foolish she had been. Present, Amaka sat on a chair in balcony, her few belongings packed in her bag. Her whole body felt numb. She had lost everything, her job, her dignity, any chance of a future. Her siblings would suffer because of her stupid, selfish fantasy. A knock on the door made her jump. "It's me," Mrs. Elizabeth's voice came from outside. "Open the door." With shaking hands, Amaka opened it. Mrs. Elizabeth stood there, still in her party dress, holding the phone with the videos. "Sit down," Mrs. Elizabeth said, entering the small room and closing the door behind her. Amaka sat on the chair, her head bowed, waiting for the verbal lashing she deserved. But Mrs. Elizabeth surprised her again. "How long have you been in love with my husband?" The direct question caught Amaka off guard. Since the first month, madam. And the recordings?" 2 months, madam." Mrs. Elizabeth was quiet for a moment. Then she said something completely unexpected. "I've known about the affair for 4 months." Amaka's head snapped up. "What?" "I hired a private investigator. I've had photos, videos, everything. I know about the woman. I know about the others before her. I've known for a long time." Mrs. Elizabeth's voice was eerily calm. "So, your little recordings, they're not news to me." Amaka felt like the ground had disappeared beneath her. But why didn't you say anything?" Mrs. Elizabeth smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Because I was waiting for the right moment. Divorce is complicated, Amaka. My husband is a smart man. He hid his assets well. I needed time to plan, to gather evidence that would hold up in court, to protect myself financially." She paused. "And then you came along with your videos, your impossible crush, your ridiculous plan." Shame burned through Amaka's entire body. "I'm sorry, madam. I was so stupid. I don't know what I was thinking." "You were thinking like every other woman who's ever been treated kindly by a man after being treated badly by the world." Mrs. Elizabeth sat down on the bed next to her. "Do you want to know something? I was once like you." Amaka looked at her in confusion. "I was a maid too," Mrs. Elizabeth continued, 20 years ago. "I worked for a wealthy family. The husband was kind to me. I fell for him, just like you fell for mine. I did everything to get his attention. And you know what happened?" Amaka shook her head. "He used me for 3 months, then threw me out when his wife found out. But here's the part I never told anyone." Mrs. Elizabeth's voice dropped to a whisper. "I got pregnant. I had his child." Amaka's eyes widened in shock. "I had a daughter. Beautiful girl. I was 19 years old, alone, no money, no family support. I had to give her up for adoption because I couldn't feed her." Tears formed in Mrs. Elizabeth's eyes. "I spent the next 5 years clawing my way back up. I educated myself. I learned to be smart, to be strategic. When I met John, I made sure to marry him properly, to secure my position. I thought I had won." Her laugh was bitter. "But look at me now. My husband still cheats. Success and money don't fix a broken man." Amaka felt tears streaming down her face. I don't know what to say. I'm telling you this because I need you to understand something." Mrs. Elizabeth looked directly into her eyes. "That daughter I gave up. I've been searching for her for 15 years, and 3 months ago I found her." "You did?" Amaka whispered. "Yes, she's 20 years old now. Beautiful, smart, and do you want to know where she is?" Amaka nodded, confused about why Mrs. Elizabeth was telling her all this. Mrs. Elizabeth's next words made Amaka's blood run cold. "She's working as a maid for my husband's business partner." The room spun. Amaka tried to process what she was hearing. "Her name is Anna. She doesn't know I'm her mother. She doesn't know I've been watching over her, making sure she's okay." Mrs. Elizabeth's voice hardened, and last week I found out that my husband's business partner has been touching her inappropriately, just like what happened to me. Oh God, Amaka breathed. So you see, Amaka, this isn't just about my marriage anymore. This is about stopping a cycle. These men, they think they can do whatever they want to girls like us. Girls with no power, no voice, no protection. Mrs. Elizabeth stood up, her entire demeanor changing from vulnerable to fierce. I need your help, not to destroy my marriage, but to destroy them both. Both? Amaka asked, confused. My husband and his business partner. They've been covering for each other's affairs for years. They have a system, they loan each other money to hide expenses from their wives. They give each other alibis. Mrs. Elizabeth pulled out a folder from her handbag. I need evidence on both of them. Your videos can bring down my husband, but I need you to help me get evidence on his partner too, to save my daughter. Amaka's mind was reeling. This was so much bigger than she had imagined. How can I help? The business partner is Chief Patrick. He throws a party at his house every month. Exclusive party, very private. That's where he does things to his maids. Mrs. Elizabeth's voice shook with rage. My daughter will be serving at the next party in 2 weeks. I need someone on the inside, someone who can record what happens, someone he won't recognize. You want me to go to this party? As a temporary server, I can arrange it. You'll go in, record everything you can and get out. Mrs. Elizabeth grabbed Amaka's hands. Please, I can't do this alone, and I can't let my daughter suffer the way I did. Amaka thought about her own siblings, about how she would do anything to protect them. She looked at Mrs. Elizabeth's desperate face and made a decision. Okay, she said, I'll do it. But what do I tell your husband? He thinks I'm leaving. Mrs. Elizabeth smiled, a real smile this time. Leave that to me. By tomorrow morning, you'll be back in this house, and we'll start planning. The proposition. True to her word, Mrs. Elizabeth had Amaka back in the house by the next morning. She had told Mr. John that firing good maids was difficult, and she needed Amaka to train a replacement first. Mr. John had been suspicious, but eventually agreed, probably relieved to have the drama behind him. Over the next 2 weeks, Amaka and Mrs. Elizabeth planned carefully. Mrs. Elizabeth's contacts got Amaka hired as a temporary server for Chief Patrick's party. She would go in with a special pen camera that looked like a regular pen, but recorded everything. Remember, Mrs. Elizabeth instructed her the night before the party, stay invisible. Serve drinks. Keep your head down, but record everything you can. Every conversation, every inappropriate touch, every face. What if I get caught? Amaka asked, fear creeping into her voice. You won't. These men are too arrogant to notice the help. Mrs. Elizabeth handed her the pen. But if something goes wrong, call me immediately. I'll be nearby. The night of the party, Amaka dressed in the plain black and white uniform of a server. Her hands shook as she pinned the camera pen to her uniform pocket. She looked in the mirror and barely recognized herself. You can do this, she whispered to her reflection. For Anna. For all of us, Chief Patrick's mansion was even bigger than the Adeyemi house. Amaka entered through the service entrance with 5 other temporary servers. The head server, a tired-looking woman named Mama Echo, gave them quick instructions. Serve drinks. Don't speak unless spoken to, and whatever you see tonight, you forget by tomorrow. Understand? All the servers nodded. Amaka's heart pounded as she picked up a tray of champagne glasses. The party was already in full swing. Rich men in expensive suits laughed loudly, drinks in hand. There were about 15 men, and Amaka recognized several faces, politicians, businessmen, people she'd seen on TV. And there, in the center of them all, was Chief Patrick, a large man with a booming laugh. And standing next to him, refilling his glass, was a young girl who looked exactly like a younger version of Mrs. Elizabeth. Anna. Amaka's breath caught. The girl was beautiful, with the same elegant features as her mother, but there was fear in her eyes. The way she flinched when Chief Patrick's hand brushed her arm, the way she kept her eyes down. Amaka began serving drinks, making sure her pen camera was pointed toward the main group. She recorded conversations, laughter, and then things got worse. As the night went on and the men got drunker, their behavior became more inappropriate. Amaka watched in horror as Chief Patrick pulled Anna onto his lap. The girl's face showed pure terror, but she didn't resist. She couldn't. She needed this job. "Come on, Chief," one of the men laughed. "Share the pretty one." Another man grabbed a different server, pulling her close. The woman's eyes showed the same resignation Amaka had seen in Anna's. Amaka kept recording, her hands shaking with rage. And then she saw him. Mr. John. He walked into the room, laughing with another man. Amaka quickly turned her back, praying he wouldn't recognize her. But he was too drunk and too focused on joining the party to notice the servers. "John," Chief Patrick called out, "Come, come. We're just having fun." Mr. John joined them, taking a drink from Anna's tray. He didn't grab her like the others, but he laughed at their jokes. He enabled them. The pen captured everything. Then Chief Patrick stood up, pulling Anna with him. "Gentlemen, excuse me for a moment. I'll be back." He started leading Anna toward a private room. The girl looked back desperately at the other servers, but no one moved to help her. They couldn't. But Amaka could. Without thinking, she stepped forward. "Sir, excuse me. Mama Echo needs to speak with that girl. Something about her mother." Chief Patrick frowned. "Her mother? What about her mother?" Amaka's mind raced. "She's outside, sir. She says it's urgent, family emergency." "Now?" "During my party." Chief Patrick looked annoyed, but let go of Anna's arm. "Fine. Go see what she wants. But come back quickly." Anna hurried toward the service entrance, confusion on her face. Amaka followed her. Once they were outside, away from the party, Anna turned to her. "Who are you?" "My mother's not here. She's dead." "I know. I lied to get you away from him." Amaka grabbed her arm gently. "Listen to me. You're in danger. These men, they're going to hurt you." "I know that." Anna's eyes filled with tears. "But what can I do?" "I need this job. I have nowhere else to go." "Yes, you do." A voice came from the shadows. Mrs. Elizabeth stepped into the light. Anna gasped. "Madam Elizabeth? What are you doing here?" Mrs. Elizabeth walked closer, her eyes filled with tears. "Saving you, Anna, like I should have done 20 years ago." "What?" "I don't understand. I'm your mother." The words hung in the air. Anna stared at Mrs. Elizabeth like she'd been struck. "No, my mother is dead. The nuns told me. The nuns lied to protect you, to protect me." Mrs. Elizabeth's tears fell freely now. "I was young, poor, alone. I had to give you up, but I never stopped looking for you, and now I've found you, and I'm not letting you go back in there." But how?" Anna's voice broke. "We'll explain everything. But right now, we need to leave, all of us." Mrs. Elizabeth looked at Amaka. "Did you get everything?" Amaka nodded, touching the pen camera. "Everything." Suddenly, loud voices came from inside. "Where is that girl? Bring her back here. We need to go." Now, Mrs. Elizabeth grabbed Anna's hand, but Anna pulled back. "Wait. There are 4 other girls in there. Young girls like me. We can't just leave them." Amaka and Mrs. Elizabeth exchanged looks. "She's right," Amaka said. "We can't abandon them." Mrs. Elizabeth closed her eyes briefly, then nodded with determination. "Okay, here's what we do." 10 minutes later, Amaka walked back into the party, her heart pounding. She went straight to Mama Echo. "Mama, I need you to listen to me carefully," Amaka whispered urgently. "In 5 minutes, the fire alarm is going to go off. When it does, I need you to get all the young servers out through the back entrance. Don't ask questions. Just do it." Mama Echo looked at her with sharp eyes. "Who are you?" "Someone who's trying to save these girls. Please, you know what these men do." Mama Echo was silent for a moment, then she nodded slowly. 5 minutes? 5 minutes. Amaka went back to serving drinks, positioning herself near the fire alarm panel. Her hands were sweating. She could see Mr. John laughing with Chief Patrick, completely unaware of what was about to happen. She counted down in her head. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. She pulled the fire alarm. Immediately, loud sirens blared throughout the mansion. Red lights flashed. The drunk men jumped up in confusion. "What's happening? Is there a fire? Everyone out." In the chaos, Mama Echo quickly gathered the young servers. "Girls, this way!" Quickly, they rushed toward the service entrance. Amaka followed, making sure everyone got out. As she reached the door, she looked back one more time. Mr. John was staring directly at her. Their eyes met. Recognition flashed across his face, followed by rage. "You!" he shouted, starting toward her, but Amaka was already running. She burst through the service entrance where Mrs. Elizabeth was waiting with her car, engine running. "Get in! Everyone, get in!" Mrs. Elizabeth shouted. 6 girls piled into the car, Anna, Amaka, and the 4 other young servers. It was cramped, but no one complained. Mrs. Elizabeth hit the gas pedal and the car sped away from the mansion. Behind them, they could see men running out of the building, shouting, looking for them, but they were already gone. In the car, everyone was breathing hard, adrenaline pumping. "Where are we going?" one of the girls asked. "Somewhere safe," Mrs. Elizabeth said firmly. "A shelter I help fund. They'll protect you while we figure out next steps." Anna looked at her mother, this stranger who claimed to be her mother, with confusion and something that might have been hope. "You really came back for me?" Mrs. Elizabeth met her eyes in the rearview mirror. "I never stopped coming back for you. I just had to find you first." The videos from both Amaka and Mrs. Elizabeth's investigators had been turned over to the police. The pen camera footage from the party was particularly damning. It showed multiple instances of harassment, assault, and worse. Chief Patrick was arrested, so were 3 other men from the party, including a prominent politician. The scandal was all over the news. Mr. John wasn't arrested. He hadn't actually done anything at the party except be present. But the association was enough to destroy his reputation. Combined with the divorce proceedings and the evidence of his affairs, his business empire was crumbling. Mrs. Elizabeth sat in her lawyer's office, signing the final divorce papers. "You're getting everything you asked for," the lawyer said with satisfaction. "The house, the cars, 65% of the business assets. He'll be lucky to have enough to rent an apartment." Mrs. Elizabeth nodded, feeling nothing. No satisfaction, no revenge, just relief. It was over. Outside the lawyer's office, Amaka and Anna were waiting. Over the past 2 weeks, they had formed a strange little family. 3 women from completely different backgrounds, brought together by trauma and courage. "How did it go?" Amaka asked when Mrs. Elizabeth came out. "It's done. We're free." Anna looked at her mother. She was slowly getting used to calling her that. "What happens now?" Mrs. Elizabeth smiled. "Now? Now we build something new. I'm converting the mansion into a shelter for young women escaping abuse, a safe place where they can live, learn, heal." "Really?" Amaka's eyes widened. "Really? And I'm going to need help running it." Mrs. Elizabeth looked at both of them. "Amaka, I'm paying for your education. Full scholarship to university. You're going to study social work. Anna, same for you, whatever you want to study." "But the other girls from the party?" Anna asked. "What about them?" "They're staying at the shelter until they're ready to move on. Some want to go back to their families, others want to start fresh here in Lagos. We'll help all of them." Mrs. Elizabeth's voice was strong and certain. No more girls falling through the cracks. No more girls being used and thrown away. Amaka felt tears streaming down her face. "How did we get here? 2 months ago, I was just a maid with a stupid crush. And now you're so much more," Mrs. Elizabeth said, pulling both young women into a hug. "We all are." 6 months later, the Adeyemi mansion, now renamed the Anna House for Women, was buzzing with life. 12 young women currently lived there, all in various stages of healing and rebuilding. Amaka was in her 2nd semester at the University of Lagos, studying social work with top grades. She had brought her 3 siblings to live at the shelter as well until they could get their own place. Anna was studying law. "I want to help prosecute men like Chief Patrick," she had declared. "I want to make sure they never hurt anyone again." Mrs. Elizabeth had become an advocate, speaking at conferences about domestic abuse and supporting other women's shelters across Lagos. One evening, the 3 of them sat in what used to be Mrs. Elizabeth's private garden, now a communal space where the shelter residents could relax. "I heard Mr. John is working as a sales manager now," Amaka said. His business completely collapsed. "Good," Mrs. Elizabeth said without malice. "Maybe he'll learn humility." "Do you ever regret it?" Anna asked her mother. "Everything that happened?" Mrs. Elizabeth thought about it. "I regret the years I wasted living a lie. I regret giving you up, even though I understand why I had to." She looked at her daughter with tears in her eyes. "But I don't regret how it all ended." "Because it brought you back to me." Anna squeezed her mother's hand. "What about you, Amaka?" Mrs. Elizabeth asked. "Do you regret your foolish crush?" Amaka laughed. "Every day I cringe thinking about it. How stupid I was. How naive." She paused. "But if I hadn't been that stupid, naive girl, I wouldn't be here now. I wouldn't have found you. I wouldn't have helped save Anna. I wouldn't be going to university." She smiled. "So maybe sometimes our mistakes lead us exactly where we need to be." A young girl, one of the new residents, approached them shyly. "Excuse me, Sister Amaka, can you help me with my homework?" "Of course," Amaka said, standing up. She turned back to Mrs. Elizabeth and Anna. "Duty calls." As Amaka walked away with the girl, Mrs. Elizabeth and Anna sat in comfortable silence. "Mother," Anna said softly. She still wasn't used to the word, but she was trying. "Why did you really start recording? It wasn't just about your marriage, was it?" Mrs. Elizabeth smiled. "You're perceptive. Like your father, the real one, not the man who used me." She sighed. "I started recording because I wanted evidence for the divorce, yes, but also because I had a feeling that these men were all connected, that they were protecting each other, and I was right. So you used Amaka's crush to your advantage." "I did, but I also gave her something real in return, a future, an education, a purpose." Mrs. Elizabeth looked at her daughter seriously. "Sometimes we have to be strategic. Sometimes we have to use the weapons we have, even if those weapons are messy or complicated, like recording devices and foolish maids in love." "Exactly." Mrs. Elizabeth laughed. "Though I prefer to think of Amaka as a brave young woman who risked everything for a fantasy and in doing so saved many real people." 1 year later, the scandal had died down. Chief Patrick was serving a 5-year prison sentence. The politician had resigned in disgrace. The other men had paid settlements to their victims and were trying to rebuild their lives quietly. Mr. John had hit rock bottom. His money gone, his reputation destroyed, his friends abandoning him. The woman in red had disappeared long ago. He lived alone in a 1-bedroom apartment, working a job he hated, eating cheap food, wondering how his life had fallen apart so completely. One afternoon, he saw them, his ex-wife Anna and Amaka, walking through a shopping mall. They were laughing, carrying shopping bags, looking happy and free. He stood frozen, watching them. Mrs. Elizabeth looked more beautiful than ever, not because of clothes or jewelry, but because of the genuine joy on her face. Anna looked confident and proud, nothing like the scared maid at that party. And Amaka looked like a completely different person, dressed like a university student, walking with her head high. For a moment, Mr. John felt a deep, aching regret, not for losing the money or the house, but for never appreciating what he had, for being the kind of man who used people instead of valuing them. They didn't see him. They were too absorbed in their own happiness, and somehow that hurt more than anything. He turned and walked away, his shoulders slumped, disappearing into the crowd. Just another face, no longer important, no longer powerful, just a man who had lost everything because he never learned to cherish anything. That night, back at Anna House, Amaka received an unexpected phone call. The number was unknown. "Hello? Amaka?" The voice was male, hesitant. This is Mr. John." Amaka's blood ran cold. She looked at Mrs. Elizabeth and Anna, who were sitting nearby. She put the phone on speaker. "What do you want?" Her voice was steady despite her racing heart. "I saw you today. At the mall. With my ex-wife and the girl." His voice sounded broken. "I need to talk to you, please. We have nothing to say to each other. Please. Just 5 minutes. I'll meet you anywhere. I need to say something." Mrs. Elizabeth shook her head firmly, but Amaka felt a strange curiosity. "Why should I?" "Because you're the only one who might understand." You loved me once, didn't you? The words stung. I was a fool. So was I. His voice cracked. Please, 5 minutes. That's all I ask. Amaka looked at Mrs. Elizabeth and Anna. They both shook their heads, but something in Amaka wanted closure. Fine. Tomorrow, 2 p.m., at the coffee shop on Adeola Odeku Street, but I'm bringing someone with me. Thank you. Thank you so much. The line went dead. Are you insane? Mrs. Elizabeth asked. What if it's a trap? Then you'll be there to save me, Amaka said with a small smile. You always are. The next day, Amaka and Mrs. Elizabeth sat at a corner table in the coffee shop. Both women were tense, watching the door. When Mr. John walked in, they barely recognized him. He had lost weight. His clothes were cheap and ill-fitting. His hair was graying. He looked 10 years older than the last time they'd seen him. He spotted them and walked over slowly, like a man approaching a firing squad. Thank you for coming, he said quietly, not sitting down until Amaka gestured to the empty chair. You have 5 minutes, Mrs. Elizabeth said coldly. Start talking. Mr. John took a deep breath. I'm not here to ask for forgiveness. I know I don't deserve it. I'm not here to blame anyone but myself. He looked at Amaka. I'm here because I owe you an apology. An apology? Amaka's voice was incredulous. When I laughed at you that night, when I mocked your feelings, I was cruel. You were a young woman working in my house, someone who had shown me kindness in her own way, and I humiliated you. He paused. I've spent this past year thinking about all the people I hurt, the women I used, the lies I told, the trust I betrayed, but somehow the image that haunts me most is your face that night, the look in your eyes when I laughed at you. Amaka felt her throat tighten, but she didn't speak. I was a coward. I'm still a coward. But I wanted you to know that you weren't foolish for having feelings. You were human. I was the foolish one for thinking people's feelings were jokes. He turned to Mrs. Elizabeth. And you were the smartest person in that house all along. I underestimated you completely. Mrs. Elizabeth's expression didn't soften. Is that all? No, there's something else. Mr. John reached into his pocket and pulled out an envelope. I don't have much left, but I managed to save something. This is 20,000 naira. I want you to give it to that shelter you're running. Mrs. Elizabeth stared at the envelope like it was a snake. I don't want your money. It's not for you. It's for the girls there, please. He placed it on the table. It's the least I can do. Nobody moved to take it. I know I can never fix what I broke. I know I deserve everything that happened to me. Mr. John stood up slowly. But I wanted you both to know that I'm sorry. Truly, deeply sorry. And I hope that someday, maybe in another life, I can be the kind of man who deserved women like you in the first place. He turned and walked toward the door. Mr. John, Amaka called out suddenly. He turned back, hope flickering in his eyes. That recording I made, the one that started all of this. Amaka's voice was clear and strong. I don't regret it, not anymore, because it led to something beautiful. It led to freedom. It led to family. It led to purpose. She paused. So thank you for being exactly the kind of man you were, because your cruelty taught me what real strength looks like. Mr. John's eyes filled with tears. He nodded once, then walked out of the coffee shop and out of their lives forever. Mrs. Elizabeth picked up the envelope and looked inside. He wasn't lying. It's 20,000. Should we take it? Amaka asked. Mrs. Elizabeth thought for a moment, then smiled. Yes, we'll take it. We'll use it to help those girls. Because this isn't about him anymore. It's about them, about us, about building something better. She handed the envelope to Amaka. You know what the best revenge is? What? Living well, being happy, helping others, creating something meaningful from the ashes of something broken. Mrs. Elizabeth raised her coffee cup. To us, to the women who refused to stay broken. Amaka clinked her cup against Mrs. Elizabeth's. To us. And to all the women who'll come after us. 3 years later, Anna House had expanded. What started as one shelter was now 3 locations across Lagos, helping hundreds of young women every year. Amaka had graduated with honors and was now the shelter's full-time social worker and counselor. Her siblings were all in good schools, thriving and happy. Anna had finished law school and was working with a firm that specialized in women's rights cases. She had successfully prosecuted 5 cases of abuse and harassment. Mrs. Elizabeth had become a national advocate for women's rights, speaking at international conferences and advising the government on policy changes. The 3 of them still lived together in the original mansion-turned-shelter, though they each had their own private quarters now. One evening, they sat in the garden, their favorite spot, watching the sunset. "I got a letter today," Mrs. Elizabeth said, "from a woman in Abuja. She said she heard about what we do here. She wants to start a similar shelter in her city. She asked for our advice." "That's amazing," Anna exclaimed. "We're inspiring others." "It's spreading," Amaka said with wonder. "The movement is spreading." Mrs. Elizabeth looked at both of them with pride. "Do you remember where we started? That chaotic night when everything fell apart?" "How could I forget?" Amaka laughed. "I dropped my phone, got caught recording, confessed my stupid crush." "It wasn't stupid," Mrs. Elizabeth interrupted gently. "It was human. It was real, and somehow that very human moment led to all of this." "I still can't believe I'm your daughter," Anna said, leaning her head on her mother's shoulder. "Sometimes I wake up and think it's all a dream." "It's real, my darling. You're real. We're real. This family we built is real." Mrs. Elizabeth wrapped her arms around both young women. "We're the family that trauma created, but love sustained." A young girl ran up to them, one of the newest residents, barely 16, rescued from an abusive employer just last week. Sister Amaka, I got accepted. I got accepted into the computer training program." Amaka jumped up and hugged her. "That's wonderful. I'm so proud of you." The girl was beaming. "I can really have a future? A real one?" "Yes," Amaka said firmly, tears in her eyes. "You can have whatever future you want. We'll help you build it." As the girl ran off to share her good news with the others, Amaka returned to sit with Mrs. Elizabeth and Anna. "That's why we do this," Mrs. Elizabeth said softly. That look on her face, that hope, that possibility. "From being a maid with a secret recording to this," Amaka mused. "If someone had told me 3 years ago that my life would turn out like this, I would never have believed them." "The universe works in mysterious ways," Anna said. "Sometimes the worst moments lead to the best outcomes. Sometimes the most broken people build the strongest foundations," Mrs. Elizabeth added. They sat in comfortable silence, watching as more girls came out to the garden, laughing and playing. Girls who had been rescued from abuse, from trafficking, from poverty, from hopelessness. Girls who were now learning skills, going to school, dreaming of futures they never thought possible. Mrs. Elizabeth stood up and stretched. "Come on, we have a donor meeting in an hour. We need to prepare our presentation for expanding to Ibadan." As they walked back toward the house together, arms linked, the sun setting behind them cast long shadows. 3 women, 3 different stories, 1 powerful bond. Behind them, the garden filled with the sounds of laughter and hope. The sound of girls who had been invisible finally being seen. Who had been used finally being valued. Who had been broken finally being made whole. And at the center of it all was a Maid's secret recording. A recording that was meant to destroy a marriage, but instead built a movement. A recording that exposed not just one man's betrayal, but an entire system's abuse. Years later, when people would ask Amaka how Anna House started, she would smile and say, "It started with a mistake, grew through pain, and blossomed into purpose. Just like all of us." And that was the truth. If this story touched your heart, type hope in the comments below. Let's build a chain of hope together, just like Amaka, Elizabeth, and Anna did. And if you believe every woman deserves a second chance, drop your city name. Let's see how far this message travels across the world. Don't forget to subscribe to Roots of the African Tales for more stories that inspire, empower, and remind us that our greatest struggles can become our most powerful transformations. Hit that notification bell, because every story here has the power to change a life, maybe even yours.